The reason nothing is happening in your life is not lack of effort. It's resistance. And once you understand this law, everything starts to move. There is a silent idea that has shaped almost every decision in your life, even if you've never consciously named it. An idea that wasn't taught directly, but absorbed through observation, repetition, and survival. The idea that living requires tension. That achieving anything demands constant effort. That if you relax for even a moment, everything might fall apart. You were taught that life is something that must be managed, controlled, monitored. That the world doesn't respond spontaneously. That everything that truly matters must be pulled out of reality through discipline, sacrifice, and relentless persistence. And so, without realizing it, you entered a permanent state of resistance. Not a conscious resistance, but a continuous internal alert state. An invisible contraction in the body. A constant mental vigilance. An energy that never truly rests. This resistance became so normal that it started to feel like maturity. Responsibility. Strength. But what almost no one realizes is that this internal state doesn't create stability, it creates friction. And friction is the opposite of flow. The greatest illusion sustaining modern life is not lack of knowledge or lack of opportunity. It is the belief that the universe must be pressured to work in your favor. As if existence were a hostile system that only responds to force. As if reality were constantly testing you, waiting for the moment you fail. But what if this perception is completely inverted? What if what you call a block is actually resistance? What if what you call delay is interference? What if what you call stagnation is excess control? Before continuing, pause, for real. Take a deep breath. Not to understand, but to feel. And if it resonates, write in the comments. I stop resisting. Not as a mental affirmation, but as an inner gesture of availability. Because everything we explore from here on can only be seen by those willing to leave fight mode. Resistance doesn't come out of nowhere. It doesn't arise because you are weak, disorganized, or incapable. It arises because at some point in your life, you learned that relaxing was dangerous. Maybe you grew up in unstable environments, where problems had to be anticipated, where trust was risky, where mistakes had heavy consequences, where life demanded constant readiness. Maybe you learned that you had to prove yourself, that you had to justify your value, that you had to work harder than everyone else, that you had to stay one step ahead just to survive. Little by little, your nervous system adapted. It learned to live in defense mode. That adaptation saved you in the past. But it does not create expansion in the present. The problem is not resistance itself. The problem is remaining in it when the threat no longer exists. Resistance is a primitive survival mechanism. It was designed for moments of real danger, not to be the background of your entire existence. When you live in resistance, your body cannot distinguish real threats from new possibilities. It reacts to everything as risk, including what could expand you. That's why many people feel anxiety precisely when things start going right. That's why the mind creates problems when everything begins to align. That's why there's a sense that something must be wrong when life becomes too light. That is not intuition. It is conditioning. Resistance doesn't fear failure. It fears change. There is a common confusion that must be cleared here. Non-resistance does not mean inertia. It does not mean giving up. It does not mean passivity. The difference between resistance and non-resistance is not what you do, but where you do it from. You can work, act, decide, create, build, all of that, from two completely different states. From tension, from coherence, action born from tension carries urgency. It wants to guarantee outcomes. It wants to control results. It wants to prevent loss. It wants to anticipate everything. That action consumes energy but creates no magnetism. Action born from coherence emerges from an internally stable state. It doesn't try to prove anything. It doesn't try to rush time. It doesn't try to correct the universe. It responds to flow. And the universe responds to response, not force. Life does not organize itself by effort intensity. It organizes itself by state quality. Many sincere, intelligent, disciplined people remain stuck for years in cycles of trying. They study, plan, visualize, affirm, work hard, and still feel that something never clicks. What almost no one says is this: trying too hard is a sign of resistance. When you try, an implicit message is being sent to the field. This is not enough as it is. The present moment is not trustworthy. I must interfere. That message is not verbal. It is vibrational. And the universe responds to the field, not to words. That's why people who seem to be not trying often receive unexpected opportunities. Not because they deserve more, but because they interfere less. Flow does not require persuasion. It requires space. The law of non-resistance is not spiritual in a romantic sense. It is structural. Every force generates an equal and opposite force. This is not philosophy. It is physics. When you push a situation too hard, it pushes back. When you tighten your grip, it slips away. When you try to hold, it fragments. This happens in relationships, in careers, in health, in creativity, in emotional life. The more you try to control someone, the more distant they become. The more you force clarity, the more confused you feel. The more you try to guarantee security, the more anxious you become. Because control is resistance. And resistance creates turbulence. The universe functions through coherence, not imposition. Water doesn't argue with the rock, it flows around it. Light doesn't fight, it passes through. Life doesn't push, it organizes. When you try to live outside this logic, you create internal friction. And that friction manifests as external blockage. Here is one of the hardest truths to accept. Resistance is not just a behavior. It is an identity. You don't just resist. You became someone who resists. Someone who anticipates too much, plans too much, predicts too much, protects too much, controls too much. This identity was built to survive, but it does not know how to receive. And every time something new approaches, this identity panics. Because the new threatens the familiar. Even when the familiar is suffering, the mind prefers the known to the unknown. Even when the known hurts. That's why resistance intensifies right before real change. It appears as sudden doubt, as unexplained exhaustion, as mental fog, as the urge to quit. This is not failure. It is transition. There is a specific point in the change process where resistance peaks. It is the moment right before leaving the old timeline. At that moment, the mind screams. The body tightens. Fear intensifies. The urge to go back appears. This is the threshold. The old identity knows it cannot cross with you, so it tries to stop you. If you interpret this moment as failure, you retreat. If you interpret it as a signal, you cross. The law of non-resistance demands maturity right here. Because letting go is harder than fighting. Fighting is familiar. Letting go is unknown. Non-resistance is not a concept. It is a state. This state has a name, presence. When you are present, you are not fighting the past. You are not trying to control the future. You are not trying to guarantee outcomes. You are here. And here is the only place where flow exists. Presence dissolves resistance because it carries no internal conflict. It does not demand. It does not pressure. It does not negotiate with fear. It simply is. And the field responds to states, not requests. When resistance begins to dissolve, something profound happens. You don't become irresponsible. You become clear. You don't lose control. You lose tension. You don't abandon action. You abandon interference. And then, almost imperceptibly at first, decisions become simpler. Relationships adjust. Opportunities appear. Time cooperates. The body relaxes. Not because life changed, but because you stepped out of the way. At this point, there is only one real choice. Not external. Internal. Continue living from resistance. Or allow a new identity. An identity that doesn't need to fight to receive. An identity that trusts the flow. An identity that acts without conflict. An identity that allows. If something in you recognizes this, don't force understanding. Let it settle. And if you want to anchor this state, right now, I allow. Not as a request, but as a decision of who you are becoming. The flow was never absent. Life was never against you. The universe never needed to be convinced. All that was ever required was for you to stop resisting